Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. And we have Pham on, and he is with Asian Efficiency. And today we're talking about how to make yourself more efficient, how to increase your productivity. And so we're so excited to have Tan on with us. Tan, tell listeners a little bit about yourself before we jump right in.
Yeah, thank you, Chantel, for having me today. So I'm the founder of Asian Efficiency. We started back in 2011, where we help people become more productive at work and in life. And I used to be somebody who was not efficient, not productive at all. And so I kind of had to study for myself how to be productive. And I basically started a blog sharing some of the things that I learned over time. And then accidentally, it turned into a productivity training business that it is today. So almost a decade later, we're still here and we're helping people all over the world become more productive and efficient. And that's my main passion. And I'm super passionate about this topic and super excited to share some of the things I've learned along the way from working with thousands of clients all over the world here and to help all the entrepreneurs and people who are excited about today's topic.
Yeah, and I saw on your website, it was really funny. You said, don't let the name fool you. This website is for anyone interested in time management and productivity, not just for Asians, right?
Yeah, a lot of people, when they first come to us, they think, oh, is this only for Asian people? And I'm like, no, this is for everybody. It just started off as a joke. Me and my friend were both Asian at the time, and somebody said, and noticed how productive we were when we were working together. And they said, oh, that's because you're Asian. It's Asian Efficiency. And we said, oh, that's a funny name. We should register that domain name. And we just started blogging about it kind of took a life of its own from there.
Oh my gosh, that's hysterical. Well, let's talk a little bit. One of the things I love that we talked about earlier was, before we started recording, was about decision-making guidelines. So one of the things I think people have a hard time doing is figuring out, how do you allow other people to let them make decisions for you? So like, I have a girl that's been with me now for 11 or 12 years, kind of from the very beginning. And literally, she is 99% of the decisions that she makes, I'm like, I would have made the exact same one. I would have made the exact same one. So what are some of the guidelines people need to implement for their team members to allow them to make decisions?
One of the things I've seen with entrepreneurs and business owners is that, like your story, they think that they have to spend all this time and all these years working with the same person before they feel comfortable delegating tasks to them or feel like that they can make decisions on their behalf. And you can actually shorten that process very quickly if you can sort of codify how you make certain decisions. And a lot of people never think about that. They just think that they just have to spend a lot of time with a person so that they, over time, kind of get it of how you think and how you operate and how you make certain decisions. When in fact, we can actually codify a lot of things that you do. So a really good book on this topic is called Work the System by Sam Carpenter. It's one of my favorite books on business systems and efficiency, especially for entrepreneurs. And one of the things he talks about is this idea called operating principles. And the name is kind of interesting and funny, but I think a simpler version that my friend Tim Francis from Grid Assistant came up with is called decision-making guidelines, right? So how do you create decision-making guidelines so that everybody in your company or in your team can make decisions on your behalf? And so you, as the business owner, have to sit down and think, okay, how do I make decisions around certain topics? Or how do I make decisions in general? Let's write that down and then fine-tune it over time. Because the first time you write stuff down, it's not going to be perfect and it's going to be that way. But over time, you're going to fine-tune it. So to give an example, when it comes to budgets or money, the way I have a guideline or decision-making guideline in place in my company is, if it costs less than $200, just pay for it and you'll be reimbursed for it, no questions asked, right? So if an employee or a team member, for example, their keyboard breaks down or their mouse stopped working or their podcast mic stopped working, instead of coming to me and saying, hey, Tan, can I buy a new mouse for $40? Right, which is more workload for me to make a decision and all that. They can just buy it on their own and then they'll be automatically reimbursed for it, no questions asked. So it facilitates a lot of speed that way because there's no questions that need to be asked or waiting for approval, right? Another example is sometimes
So let me stop you right there because I want to ask you another question about that. So when what makes it where you say, kind of like if you thinking in your mind is that if they're willing to buy it, right, on their own credit card, and that it means that much to them to buy it, number one. And number two, like if it was like a $2,000 expense, maybe they'd be like, I don't really want to spend $2,000, but I'll spend $40 on a mouse. I just want to get the logic behind what you were thinking when you implemented that policy.
Yeah, so it's more about how I can speed up decisions rather than how much money they're willing to spend on their own. And so for me, if I can solve a problem with $200 or less, I don't have to necessarily make that decision. I just let other people make that decision, and we'll just pay for it. And we can, So
is the guideline $200 or less?
Yes, for me it is. Yeah. Now for your company, especially if you're starting off, it may be a little smaller. It could be like $25 or $50. But even then, when you introduce that, somebody can make a lot of decisions on their own and speed up a lot of processes that way without, bogging you down if you have to make that certain decision. And so that's just a guideline that we have in place. And so I'm comfortable in my own company to spend $200 without kind of thinking about it. But it all depends, where you are in your business and so on. And so it's just to really speed up the process. And to give you another example, we have a lot of discussions with team members in meetings, and somebody might say, well, I think this is the best solution, or this is the better solution. Everybody starts sharing ideas of what we should do. And one of the decision-making guidelines we have is the simplest solution is the best solution. So every time we have a meeting and we can't come to a final conclusion what direction we should go, we always go back to this idea that the simplest solution is the best solution. And every time we bring that up, everybody goes, okay, this is the simplest solution. Let's go with that. And then we can just kind of steamroll from there. And so hopefully everybody that's listening and watching can see that if you just incorporate 2, 3, maybe even 5 decision-making guidelines of how you make decisions, you allow and empower other people to make the right decisions on your behalf.
Awesome. I love that. Any others? Give us one more practical example, just like that, for the decision-making guidelines that everyone in the company can know before, so that they can make decisions quicker and easier.
Yeah. So another one that I have here, I have the document open in front of me. So it says, if a problem occurs more than 3 times, this is an indication of a systemic error that needs to be corrected. So if a problem happens more often than 3 times, what that usually indicates is that there's some sort of system or process in place that keeps creating this mistake or this error, right? So to give an example, every time I open up the washing machine, it makes a certain noise, and it has happened more than 3 times, but I've never done anything about it because it just kept making that noise, right? But it was because a certain screw was loose. So instead of just, kind of dealing with the noise and just coping with it, I said, okay, what's actually the root problem of this? Let's actually investigate this, because there's something there that's not working correctly. And if we just fix that, hopefully the noise will go away. And then I found out, there's a certain screw that was loose. And once I twisted that screw a little tighter, the washing machine stopped making that noise, and it was just really smooth and it was just not disturbing me in any way, shape, or form. And you see this in your business all the time too. Maybe it's somebody who makes the same mistake over and over and over again, right? What do you do then? Well, you can change the process, or you can train that person so that that person knows that this is how you actually follow this process, or this is how you upload a podcast, or this is how you name something. And so that's where maybe training is evolved. Or maybe it's a mistake that other people make very frequently, and there's just lack of documentation in your business. Okay, maybe that's something that we can address then, right? And so if you see something that frustrates you multiple times, think about what's actually the root cause of this. And if it's happening multiple times, you probably have an opportunity to fix something at its root cause so it will never happen again.
I love it. Well, I would like for you to give us just 5 general tips that you can give someone on productivity in general. So you could say like, when I do this, this is a great tip that I have.
Yeah, so I've been teaching productivity since 2011, and I've tried hundreds of different experiments ranging from scheduling my calendar for every 30 minutes to writing my goals down every single morning. And I've worked with hundreds of clients. And if I had to boil down to 5 things, here are some of the things that I've seen to be most effective for me and dozens of our clients. So the first thing is, 1, go to bed earlier than you think you should. Sleep, I think, is one of the most underrated factors for peak performance. So if you're somebody who wants to be on the go, really be active and get stuff done, you have to have energy to do so. If you don't have the energy, then you can't do anything. Or you can have the right apps, you can have the right tools, but if you don't have the energy, it's kind of like having a supercar in your garage with no gas in it. Right? It can't do anything. So getting the right amount of sleep is super important. And I recommend at least 7 hours for the typical person. And so the best way to do that is not to go to bed later, but to go to bed earlier. So that's one thing I would recommend people do. The second thing is to do the hardest thing first in the morning. So if you have a to-do list, do the hardest thing first before you do anything else. If you get the thing done that you most likely procrastinate on, or the thing you despise the most, chances are, if you wait till the end of the day, you will still procrastinate. You might say, you know what, I don't feel like it. I'm going to roll this over to the next day. And you end up, delaying it multiple times. Rather than if you do it first thing in the morning and get that out of the way, you kind of set the tone for the rest of the day that you're going to go and get stuff done. And so get the hardest or ugliest thing done first. And that's one thing I've seen so many people do with a lot of great success, and really sets the tone for the rest of the day to do really well. Because everything else then that comes on your plate is relatively easy because you get the ugly thing out of the way first. So that's my second tip that I would recommend for most people. The third thing is your to-do list. And I would say follow the rule of 3. If you have 10, 15 items on your to-do list, chances are there's only 3 things you really have to do that are really crucial to that particular day, or the outcomes that you're shooting for, or the goals that you have in mind. And so when everything on your to-do list looks important, nothing truly is. So that's something I always want to keep people in mind, is that you have to prioritize what's on your to-do list. You usually can't do all of it. We all have the same 24 hours in a day, so we have to prioritize. And the rule of 3 basically says 3 things on your to-do list is what you should shoot for, and do those first before anything else. And so if you have 10, 15 items on your to-do list, let's prioritize them and say, let's rearrange them in order from 1 through, let's say, 15, and let's work on the first 3 first before we do anything else. So again, follow the rule of 3. And so that is my third tip there as well. Another tip is, especially for entrepreneurs and business owners that are watching today, you need more downtime than you think you do. All of us like to work all the time. All of us like to sacrifice our sleep. All of us like to work late at nights. But we are more stressed than the typical worker out there. And so I would schedule at least 1 hour on your calendar to just relax. Just have downtime. When was the last time you just watched Netflix? When was the last time you read a book from start to finish and didn't think about anything else? I know it's so challenging for most of us. So one thing that is really helpful is to schedule that downtime. Maybe go to the spa, maybe go get a massage, maybe go to a sauna. When was the last time you did something for yourself to just decompress and relax? Chances are, if you're running a business, you're just on the go all the time. You're not thinking about your own health or your body or recovery, which is what we also need. If we're going to go all the time, like professional athletes, we also need to recover from our activities. That's something that I see most people don't do enough. So number 4, again, is to schedule at least 1 hour of downtime, whether it's relaxation, going for a walk, getting a massage, go to the sauna, do something for yourself. And then the 5th and final tip here that I recommend for most people is to have some sort of meditation practice in your daily life. The more you can calm down the mind, the more you can focus. And so something like calm.com or Headspace are great meditation apps that I recommend and are really easy to use, and it only takes 10 minutes a day. But those 10 minutes of serene calmness can generate a lot of focus time for yourself. So I like to see it as investing 10 minutes in yourself to get 2-3 hours of focus time in your day.
Awesome. So what are the 5 technology tools that you've implemented that you feel like have really saved a ton of time and made you more efficient? Like Calendly to manage your calendar or whatever it is. But what would you say are your top 5 technology tools?
Yeah, I have so many, and I've experimented with so many because that's part of my job, is to always look for the newest and greatest tools. So a couple tools that I really like are Calendly for scheduling meetings. So we've kind of done that today to get on this podcast and recording. So that's something I really enjoy and saves a lot of time. So Calendly is something that you can check out. Another one is called 1Password. So it's a password manager tool so that you just have to memorize one password, hence the name, but then you can log into all of your bank accounts, email accounts, shopping websites by just pressing a button. And so it saves you a ton of time. And again, you only have to memorize one password, and it can generate secure passwords for you across all the websites.
Yeah, we use LastPass.com.
That. Another great one.
Do you like 1Password better than LastPass?
I personally like 1Password better. Yep. And we actually recently moved over from LastPass back to 1Password.
What do you like better about it?
I think the user interface is a lot simpler. I think LastPass is really good for enterprise level. Like if you're somebody who runs like hundreds of employees, you can get really granular in terms of like restrictions and what you can do. But if you're a small business, you have less than 25 people, I think something like 1Password is much simpler for most people to use. Yep.
Oh, so do you think LastPass is better if your business is bigger?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Because it takes a certain IT person to really make sure it's set up correctly, especially as you're growing. But if you're a small business, I think 1Password is really simple and suitable for most people. And it grows and scales pretty well as you grow as well. Okay. A favorite calendar app, one that I like. Now I'm on the Mac, so the one I like the most is called BusyCal. BusyCal is my favorite calendar app ever. It has the most power user features. So one of my favorite features is that you can change your week view. So for example, for most people, a week view is 7 days, but I changed it to 10 days. So now if I click on week view, I can actually see what's going on over the next 10 days, which is to me more satisfying to kind of know what's happening 10 days out rather than 7 days. So that's one of my favorite apps as well.
And then that one, is that a one-time charge for that app?
Yes. Yep.
So it's like $49 and then you just pay one time and it's done? Yep.
So no subscription, just pay one time and you're good to go.
So what are all the benefits? Is that the main one, is just that you feel like you can see a broader range of what you have going on?
That's one of my favorite features. You can also obviously code your calendar with different colors as well. But it has so many power user features that you just, once you get used to using a calendar every single day and you kind of live your life in your calendar, I think choosing the right calendar app for you is one of the best decisions that you can make. And so BusyCal is my favorite. Another one that I like, but I don't use as much, is called Fantastical. It's another great calendar app as well. And it runs on top of Google Calendar. So it all stays in sync whether you use a different app on your phone or not. But BusyCal is my favorite one because of the power user features. Like you can type in stuff like meeting at 5 o'clock at Justine's or something with Melinda. And then it will automatically turn it into the right event. And whether you create repeating events and so on, it's really, really simple. So that's my favorite one. Okay. Another one that I really like is OmniFocus. So OmniFocus is my task manager or to-do list app. It used to be known and be notoriously known for being challenging and difficult because it's really designed for power users. But they've done a really good job over the last few years making it really simple and accessible for most people. So in the beginning, I would never recommend it for most people because you have to be a power user to really like it. But nowadays, it's a really good app for everybody to check out.
When you say you have to be a power user, do you mean like you just have to be very, very tech savvy? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. So you had to, for example, really understand GTD, or Getting Things Done by David Allen, which is a popular framework. You have to be really nitpicky and detail oriented, and you have to have like a systems thinking kind of mind to make something work, almost like thinking like an engineer. But now they've made it so simple that even my mom could use it, who's not tech savvy whatsoever. Right?
So is that what you use for task management?
Yep. Yeah. So that's what I use for personal. And then the last tool I will recommend is called Confluence. So Confluence is by Atlassian, and it's basically a online platform. Think of it as like Wikipedia for your business. So this is where we store all of our meeting notes, our SOPs and documentation, all the documents in our businesses. This is where we all store it. And I think it's the greatest online tool for this, where you can store all of that in place so your team knows where to find information that they need. So it's something that I would recommend as well.
Okay. Well, that brings me to my next point. One of the things I feel like we are very efficient, but one of the things I feel like we are not efficient in is task management. And we have literally tried so many different things and so many different apps. And so let's talk specifically tools. Well, we can talk about some more tools besides that one that you like for task management. But I think there's more to just a platform to getting task management done. And so one of the things that I feel like our staff, because we are all so busy, we are all just are like moving at the speed of light. But I personally feel like I'll say, hey, I need you to do this, 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 and this. And then something else will come up, right? And so it'll be like, okay, well, but this is more urgent than whatever else was on the task list. And that moved up. So talk a little bit about tips to help with that in specific of how to get task management items done.
Yeah, so this is a very common problem. I see people struggle with this a lot in teams and in businesses. So what you're experiencing and describing is very, very common. And to me, what that usually indicates is a lack of clarity of priorities. Because every person, when they look at their to-do list, or when they think about when they end their day, they should know if they had a good day or not, right? Every employee, every team member, when they end their day, they should know whether they had a good day or not in terms of what they produced and the results that they generated, right? And so that comes from having clarity to what everybody's supposed to be doing and how they're being measured and scored by, right? And once they know that, they can kind of prioritize on their own what they need to do. So it kind of starts at the top and trickles down from the bottom. So to give you an example, we set our goals in our company on a quarterly basis, right? So every quarter we have a certain goal. It could be a revenue goal, it could be a profit goal, it could be a project-based goal, right? So a revenue goal could be something like, we want to do, let's just say $100,000 this quarter, right? Or a project-based goal could be something like, we want to launch our website this quarter and redesign it and launch it out there, right? Or we want to launch a new podcast, or a new YouTube channel, and so on, right? It could also be a profit goal, so hey, let's generate $50,000 in profit this quarter, and it could be based on cutting expenses, right? Generating more revenue. It could be done in a lot of different ways. But once everybody understands what the goal is for the quarter, then that allows everybody to prioritize what they should be doing, right? And so if I talk to Brooks, my second person in command, and we say, hey, this quarter, our goal is to hit, let's just say $100,000 in revenue. That's the number one priority. Then anytime I give him a task, he then knows how to prioritize it, because one, he needs to spend time on stuff that generates some sort of progress towards our company goal, right? But also he needs to do stuff that's urgent, that is pressing, and it's up to that person to kind of prioritize. And so having clarity about, this is where we're shooting for, this is where we're going, gives a lot of freedom to people to then decide, okay, how do I prioritize my to-do list, right? And so, for example, my executive assistant typically doesn't directly contribute to our company goal, but she knows that her measurement of success is making sure that she empowers me, and that anything that is being delegated is done within 24 hours. that's kind of like her general guideline of how she knows that everything is being done and that how she can have a successful day as well. And so she knows that anytime something's delegated to her, it should be done within 24 hours. And if it's not, it needs to be communicated to me so that I know about that, right? Or if I give her a project or a task or something, and I say, hey, this can be done in 5 days, that allows her to prioritize as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's really good. So let's talk a little bit about your morning routine and kind of some things that you should do as a leader that's going to get you to the place that you want, these habits that you need to create success in your life.
Yeah, morning routine is so powerful. And people who are watching this might have heard how, certain people have certain morning routines. Is there a best one out there? Do you need 5 steps? How long does it take? And there's no one perfect morning routine. However, I think based on my own experience and working with hundreds of clients over the years, is that there are certain elements that I think are important in every morning routine. And when we think about the importance of a morning routine, it's really 2 things. One, a morning routine should set you up for that particular day, right? So by the end of the morning routine, you should feel confident and you should feel like you have lots of clarity about what's going to happen that day, right? And if you don't have that, it's really hard to be productive. Imagine walking into your office and you're anxious, you're upset, you feel tired, and you walk into the office. How do you think you're going to be productive that day, right? How do you think you can focus then? It's going to be very challenging if you have something really important to do, but you feel lethargic, you feel fatigued, you feel like you're not excited about your work, right? And so the morning routine is really designed to help you feel a certain way. Again, I think confidence and clarity are the 2 most powerful emotions that a morning routine should give you, right? So imagine on the flip side, walking in, knowing exactly what you need to do, feeling really excited about your work, having clarity about what you're going to do that day. It's going to change the way you approach your work. It's going to change how much you get done that day, right? And so the morning routine is really designed for that. So one thing that I always think everybody should do is look at their goals in the morning and ideally journal about it as well. And this shouldn't take more than 3-5 minutes or so, right? So if you look at your goals and you say, hey, this year I want to accomplish this, whether it's saving a certain amount of money in your bank account or savings account, or hitting a certain milestone in your business, or growing your company to a certain revenue size. If you know what your goals are every single morning and you look at it and ideally even, visualize that really sets you up to be focused and say, okay, I need to do this today, right? And so when you look at your to-do list and knowing exactly what you're trying to accomplish, you'll start to see this is more important than all the other stuff that's not related to my goal whatsoever. So this is the thing I should focus on first. And so looking at your goals every single morning, I think is one of the most powerful things you can do. And then the other thing is getting yourself in the right kind of state of mind. So I always like to do certain stretching, exercise in the morning. And this doesn't have to mean anything like going to the gym or anything, but just like if you have a foam roller, use a foam roller to loosen yourself up. If you have a yoga mat at home, do a few stretches just to get the body going, get your blood flow going so that you feel good about yourself, so that when you do start your work, you feel really good and you know exactly what you need to do. And that's a recipe for lots of productivity that day.
Mm. So one of the things that I found that people do, like you said, with their task management list is that they do what they want to do first, right? So it's like not necessarily what they need to get done. And so how do you fix that issue where it's like, they're like, well, I did this, I was busy because I was working on A, B, C, and D, but E, F, G, and H were way more important. And they kind of make the excuse that A, B, C, and D, because they enjoy doing that. They say, oh, I didn't have time to do E, F, G, H because I was so bogged down with A, B, C, D.
Yeah, this is very common. And part of it, I think, is understanding the importance of, task E, F, G, H, and so on, right? And another part of it is also up to them to structure their day so that they allow time to focus on these things, which is one of the reasons I always recommend people to do the ugly thing first right? Do the hardest thing first thing in the morning, which is usually the task that you don't want to do, right? But oftentimes the tasks you don't want to do or that scare you the most are oftentimes the most impactful things, right? And the most important things as well. Mm-hmm. And so I would say flip it around and encourage everyone to do those tasks first before you get to the enjoyable parts, because those are the easy things that you can do anyway. Right? You can always do that later if you wanted to. But to do the hard things first in the morning requires a lot of energy and focus. And if you, again, set up a good morning routine, get yourself psyched up, you're excited about what you're doing that day, then tackling those hard things will become a lot easier. And then I think us as leaders have to hold people accountable as well. And that is important for them to know that, hey, you're getting paid to do this particular job. I need to know that you can do this, and here are the things that I know you should be doing. So let's make sure you get those particular things done, right? And I'm not saying that as a, hey, I'm your boss, you need to do this for me. But people do have to understand that they're being paid to do a certain job. And if they understand that this is what's really important for their role and for them to succeed, then they're more likely inclined to focus on that. And if we hold them accountable to that, then they feel like they can do their job in a way that they want to, while still performing and delivering the results that they're being measured against. So it's up to us to really hold them accountable. And if you're somebody who's scared to approach that or has difficulty with having those kind of conversations, I think that's an opportunity for you as a leader to look into and say, hey, what can I do to hold my people accountable so that they deliver the results that I need them to do?
Okay. So let's say that let's do a little role play between me and you. Okay. You can be my boss. And let's just say you said to me, Chantel, I need to make sure you did A and B before you left today. So don't leave today until you do. And let's say the next day, they're like, you find out that they didn't do it. So let's have that conversation. So I'm sorry. Okay. I didn't get a chance to finish that. The day just got away from me. I didn't get a chance to do it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to say that I appreciate that you shared that with me, that you didn't have a chance to do task A and B. Why do you think that happened?
I just feel like, task A took me way longer than I thought. So I finished task A, but I wasn't able to get B done. But I'll be able to finish that hopefully by the end of today. Okay.
And what can we learn from task A? Why did it take longer than you thought it would?
My computer, it seemed like my computer was running slow. I couldn't find all the documents I needed to get task A done. It just was, everyone was pulling me away, asking me questions. So I just feel like between the combination of everyone coming to me and task A taking longer with me not having all the documentation I needed.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that it took longer than you thought, right? And I asked of you to get it done yesterday, and it's unfortunate that didn't happen. And I think what's important for us to know that when I set a hard deadline for something, that we do try to adhere to that as much as possible, because there's a reason oftentimes when we have those deadlines, because it allows other people to do certain things, or it allows me to focus on certain things. And so the next time, what I would suggest for us to work on together is to say, hey, if you run into a task and it takes longer than you think it does, I want you to communicate that to me right away so that I can make adjustments as needed as well. Right. And so I'm going to let it slide for this time. But if this happens again in the future, I would love to hear from you right away if something is being delayed or not getting done in time, so that we can make adjustments right away. And I do want to set the expectation that when we set deadlines for each other and we come to an agreement that we will get it done that day, that we also follow through on this. And if we don't, let's talk about it at least and communicate about it so that we can make adjustments as needed. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that was great. Okay, last thing. So one of the things that I love that you said was that you kind of make 3 priorities for the day. And one of the things we actually do for every team member on our staff is we give them three goals every single week. And we have a meeting on Monday, and everyone literally old fashioned, we have it on the computer, but we also write it up on a big whiteboard just because everyone can see it nice and big, and so we'll put them on the screen. And then one of the things we say is that we want you to average at least 2 or higher for the month, which means this. Because it was funny because I play tennis, and I was talking to my tennis pro, and he said to me, I said, "How's your daughter doing?" He's like, "Oh, she's doing terrible." I said, "Why? You're the tennis pro. She should be doing fantastic." He's like, "Well, it's all my fault because she's actually a 4-0 tennis player, but I put her in a 4-5, 5-0 league, and she lost every single match. And so then when I bumped her down to the 4-0 league where she should have done, she still was losing every match because she lost all of her confidence." He said, "What we tell tennis players is they should be winning about 2 out of every 3 tennis matches. Because if they're winning 3 out of 3, that means they're not stretching themselves at all. But if they're winning 0 out of 3 or 1 out of 3, that's just bad for their self-esteem." So I heard that and I was like, that is so good. So I was like, all right, everyone in our team, we're going to be doing 3 out of every week you've got 3 goals to accomplish. Now, at the end of that week, we mark it on the board. That means, okay, this week you did 3. Second week you did 2 out of 3. Third week you did 1 out of 3. And we average that. Our goal is some weeks you're going to do 3 out of 3. Some weeks you're going to do 2 out of 3. But your average needs to be 2 or higher, somewhere around the 2.5 range. So we know that you're making goals that are stretching you, but shouldn't be hitting it every week. But some weeks you should be hitting 3 out of 3. So talk about anything else like that you can think of that you're doing to get people to hit their commitments. Any kind of strategies or tips that you say, we've got to win this together.
Yeah, I really love that analogy that you shared there. And I can see that totally working as well and get people really excited. And I think what's working really well for us is we follow a certain methodology called Scrum. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. Mm-hmm. Scrum originally comes from the software world where software teams would come together and they call it a sprint, where they set a target for 2 weeks at a time and then say, hey, we're going to hit this target in 2 weeks. And if we don't, that's okay. But if we do, that's okay too. But we need to come together in 2 weeks from now and basically share what we've learned along the way, and then have daily check-ins with the whole team to make sure that we're making progress. And so one of the things that we do is we call it a daily huddle. We have it every 11 a.m. In our company, where everyone comes together and then shares like some of the wins that they had that day or yesterday, and some of the things that are going to get done later that day or that they're committed to getting done that day. So everybody comes in our company together on that particular meeting, and it doesn't take more than 10 minutes or so. But it holds everybody accountable, and also gets everybody super excited about, hey, this is what we're doing today. And we know that there's a finish line because it's always every 2 weeks. And so there's a really short time frame to tackle big projects. But because we have a daily call where everybody's being held accountable, everybody knows where we are at all times. And so because it's a sprint, meaning we're going to go all out in 2 weeks and then kind of like take a 1-day break and then go at it again, it allows people to really focus on very few things, but also knowing that, there's an end to it as well. Right. And oftentimes we've seen that when we set the goal so far away, like a year out, we tend to lose momentum. We tend to lose steam after a few weeks or a few months. Whereas if we keep it really short and we have short bursts of sprints, everybody is always excited and engaged the whole time. And so that's something that we found working really well for us, is to engage in 2-week sprints. And if you want to find out more information about this, it's basically called Scrum, SCRUM. It's a really interesting methodology and something that we found our teams to be really, they're really engaged the whole time, which I think is so important as leaders, making sure people are engaged, excited, and having those sprints in place allow people to get focused on something and then take a break and then focus again. And then take a break.
It's basically like you either make it a 2-week or a 4-week kind of, you create a goal and it's only 2 weeks long. Is that kind of the idea?
Exactly. Yeah. And the 2 weeks, so for us, it's 2 weeks. Those goals are related to the company goal, right? So for example, if the quarterly goal is, again, just simple numbers, if it's $100,000, right? We usually have 6 sprints in a particular quarter. And so we know that every single sprint, we have to hit certain numbers in order to hit $100,000, right? Now, it's not oftentimes as simple as like $100,000 divided by 6, $16,000 or something. But oftentimes, you need to on-ramp a little bit, but we have those milestones in place. So we know every single sprint, hey, we're hitting that number. Okay. Are we at $16,000? Oh no, we're $4,000 behind. Okay. That means the next number needs to be $4,000 more than what we calculated as we were planning. And so sometimes the goals kind of change midway through and become more challenging, but it allows people to get really excited because they know there's a finish line. So that's something that is working really well for us.
I love it. Well, this has been amazing. I've really enjoyed my time with you. Tell listeners where they can find you and where they can follow you and what your free gift is.
Absolutely. You can follow us at asianefficiency.com. And we also have a podcast called The Productivity Show. So if you Google The Productivity Show on your podcast app, you'll find us there. And we have a free gift for everybody here called Morning Momentum. It's normally $29, but it's a really simple checklist of things that you can do to set up your morning routine. And so we're going to give that away to everybody that's watching here today.
That is awesome. Well, thank you so much. And stay with us because we have another episode coming up in just a minute.